I never imagined that helping my neighbor cope with grief would be the moment I stopped hiding from myself. My name is Daniel, I'm 28, and for a long time, loneliness was my constant companion. Not the kind you choose after a rough day, but the kind that creeps in slowly, like fog settling over a city until you can't even see your own hand in front of your face anymore. I lived in a small apartment on the 3rd floor where the silence was so dense I could hear the upstairs neighbor's television at 11 at night. I worked from home, a programmer. The kind of job where you can spend entire days without needing to talk to anyone but your computer. And I was comfortable like that. Or at least that's what I told myself every time I turned down an invitation. Every time I pretended not to be home when someone knocked on the door. The truth is, I was afraid of being seen. Afraid that if I opened the door of my life to someone, that person would discover who I really was. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to admit, even to myself, certain things that pulsed in my chest every time I saw 2 men holding hands on the street, or when my gaze lingered a second longer than it should on the guy at the gym. It was like this, in this state of emotional hibernation, that Marcus appeared in my life. He moved into the apartment next door on a rainy Saturday in April. I remember the sound of furniture being dragged, the muffled voices crossing the thin wall between our apartments. I was on the couch, pretending to work, when I first heard his laugh. It was a deep, warm laugh. The kind of sound you feel in your chest even through concrete walls. And along with it, a childish, high-pitched voice calling, "Daddy, Daddy, look!" A girl. He had a daughter. In those first days, I caught glimpses of them here and there. Marcus was a firefighter, as I learned later. Tall, broad shoulders, the kind of guy who commands attention just by walking into a room. Brown hair always tousled, like he'd run his fingers through it without thinking. And the girl, Emma, couldn't have been more than 6, always with a pink backpack. Always chattering away as he walked her to school. I greeted them with a nod when we crossed paths in the hallway. He always smiled, a tired but genuine smile, and said, "Good morning," with that voice that seemed made for telling stories around a campfire. I mumbled something back and quickened my pace, my heart beating faster than it should for such a simple interaction. But there was something in his eyes, something I recognized because I saw it in the mirror every day, a kind of weariness. Not the physical exhaustion of someone who works too much, but that deep fatigue of someone carrying an invisible weight they can never put down. It was only 3 weeks after he moved in that I found out why. It was a Thursday, almost midnight. I was finishing a report when I heard his door close, footsteps in the hallway, and then silence. A silence so heavy it made me get up from the computer and go to the door. I don't know why I did it. It wasn't my style to get involved, but something in that silence was screaming. When I opened the door, Marcus was sitting on the hallway floor, his back against the wall, his head in his hands. He wasn't crying. It was worse than that. It was that controlled, tense breathing of someone trying not to break down. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out softer than I intended. "Are you okay?" He lifted his head. His eyes were red but dry. There was something in that look that pierced me. Raw vulnerability. Silent despair. "No," he replied after a long moment. And then, as if that word had broken a dam, he continued. I'm not okay at all. And I can't pretend anymore. I should have said something comforting. Something polite about, if you need to talk, I'm here. But what came out of my mouth was different. "Do you want to come in? I have coffee. Or beer. Or both." He looked at me as if he was trying to decipher if I was real. And then he nodded. And so it was, that Thursday night sitting at my small kitchen table with a bottle of beer between us, that Marcus told me about Sarah. She was his wife. Was, past tense. 3 months ago, a car accident on the highway. Instant death, the doctor said, as if that made any difference. As if instant meant less painful for those left behind. "Emma doesn't really get it," he said, turning the bottle over and over in his hands. "She keeps asking when mommy's coming home. And what do I even say? How do you tell a 6-year-old that the person she loves most in the world is just gone?" I didn't have an answer, but I realized he wasn't looking for one. He just needed to talk to someone who didn't know him before, someone who had no expectations about how he should feel or act. "Everyone wants me to be strong," he continued. And for the first time, his voice cracked. "My parents, my colleagues, the parents of Emma's friends at school, everyone looks at me expecting me to be the brave firefighter who saves people, who can handle anything. But I'm not. I wake up in the middle of the night and forget for a second that she's gone. And then I remember. And it's like dying again. Every single day." He ran a hand over his face and I saw his hands tremble. Large, strong hands. Hands that had probably carried people out of burning buildings. And there they were, trembling. "Can I talk to someone who won't judge me?" he asked. And there was so much despair in that question that something broke inside me. "Yes," I said. And then, without much thought, I reached out and touched his hand. Just a light touch, my fingers brushing against his. "You can." He didn't pull his hand away. And in that moment, in that small point of contact between us, something shifted. I couldn't explain what. But it was as if, for the first time in years, I was truly present. Not hidden behind my walls, not pretending to be someone I wasn't. Just there. That night stretched on for hours. Marcus talked about Sarah, about how they met, about the plans they had for the future. He talked about Emma and how he felt like a terrible father for not being able to hide his own pain from her. He talked about the nights he would drive aimlessly after Emma fell asleep, just to avoid being alone in that apartment filled with absences. And I listened, just listened. I didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer cliches about time healing all wounds. I just stayed there, present, and occasionally refilled his beer. At 3 in the morning, he looked at his watch and stood up with a sigh. "I need to go. Emma wakes up early." "Of course," I said, walking him to the door. He paused at the threshold, turned to me. There was something different about his face. Some of the tension had eased. "Thank you," he said, for not trying to fix me. For just being here. "Anytime," I replied, and I realized I meant it. After he left, I stayed awake for another hour, staring at the chair where he had been sitting. My hands still tingled where I had touched his. And for the first time in a long time, my apartment didn't feel so empty. I didn't know it yet, but that night was just the beginning. Marcus came back the next night, and the next, and the next, always after Emma was asleep. Always with that same look of someone drowning who had found someone willing to hold their head above water. The conversations were different each night. Sometimes he talked about Sarah, other times about work, about difficult incidents that haunted him. Once he told me about a fire where he arrived too late to save a dog, and how he had cried more for that dog than he had been able to cry at his wife's funeral. "It's easier to cry for the dog," he said, "because it's black and white. It's sad, but it's uncomplicated. With Sarah, it's messy. It's sadness and anger and guilt and relief that she didn't suffer and rage at her for leaving me to handle this alone. It's all tangled up and I can't sort through it." And in those nights, something began to happen. Something subtle, almost imperceptible at first. The distance between us at the table gradually lessened. On the first day, he sat on the other side. A week later, he was beside me. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was just that somehow being close felt more natural than being far apart. I started paying attention to small details. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was nervous. The way his eyes would narrow slightly when he was about to make a difficult confession. The sound of his breathing growing calmer when I simply placed my hand near his on the table. And then the touches began. Unintentional at first. Our knees brushing under the table. My shoulder grazing his when I leaned to grab the bottle. But gradually these touches lasted a second longer. And then another, until it stopped feeling accidental. One night, he was telling me about Sarah's last birthday. And in the middle of the story, he just stopped. He stared at his own hands. "I feel guilty," he said quietly. "About what?" "Because..." He took a shaky breath. "Because now when I wake up at 3 a.m., I'm not seeing her face. I'm seeing other things, other people." My heart pounded. "That's normal," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. "You're alive. You're still here." He looked at me and there was something new in his gaze. Something that made me forget to breathe. "Is it?" he asked. "Is it normal that when I close my eyes lately what I see is... you?" The silence was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Could feel the weight of every inch between us. "Marcus," I began, but didn't know how to finish. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, standing up. "I shouldn't have said that. I'm not thinking straight. It's the grief. It's the confusion. No, I interrupted him, standing up too. We stood face to face, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Don't apologize." He looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. But I also saw hope. That fragile, frightened kind of hope. From someone unsure if they can trust what they're feeling. "I don't know what's happening to me," he whispered. "I never. With Sarah, it was different. I never looked at another man this way. And now, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Now I think about you all day. I think about the way you listen without interrupting me. The way you don't try to fix me. The way you look at me as if I'm more than just a broken man trying to survive." Something inside me shattered and rebuilt itself at the same time. Because I recognized it. I recognized that terror mixed with desire. It was what I felt every time he showed up at my door. It was what made my heart race every time our fingers accidentally brushed. Before I could answer, we heard a noise from his apartment, the sound of a door opening. Emma. "Daddy?" Her muffled voice came through the wall. Marcus closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them again, the vulnerability had been replaced by something more controlled. "I need to go," he said. "I know." But he didn't move. We stood there, still, looking at each other. And then, so fast I almost thought I'd imagined it, he raised his hand and touched my face. Just a light touch, his fingers grazing my cheek for a second. 2, 3. "Good night, Daniel," he whispered. And then he was gone, leaving me alone with my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. In the following days, there was an awkward silence. Marcus didn't show up the next night, nor the one after that. I told myself it was for the best, that it was too complicated, that he was vulnerable, that I was taking advantage of his situation, that I should return to my safety, to my walls, to my comfortable and familiar solitude. But the truth was, my apartment had never felt so empty, and I had never missed someone I barely knew so much. It was Thursday night, exactly a week after that conversation, when my phone rang. A number I hadn't saved, but that I recognized instantly. "Can I come over earlier tonight?" Marcus's voice came from the other end. There was something different about it. It wasn't despair. It wasn't sadness. It was determination. "I need to tell you something." "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "When?" "Now. Emma's with my mom tonight." He hung up before I could answer. I spent the next 15 minutes pacing back and forth across the apartment, telling myself to calm down, telling myself it could be anything. That maybe he just wanted to thank me and say he didn't need to talk anymore, that maybe he had realized things were getting strange and wanted to end it for good. But deep down, truly deep down, I knew it wasn't that. I knew it by the way my heart was racing, by the way my hands were trembling, by the way, for the first time in years, I was scared and excited at the same time. When the doorbell rang, I took 3 deep breaths before opening the door. Marcus was on the other side, and he wasn't crying. His eyes were clear, his posture was erect. He was calm, and somehow that terrified me more than anything. That Thursday, when he showed up, I'd braced myself for the broken version of him. Red eyes, a shaky voice, that rawness that somehow made me feel needed and grounded. But when I opened the door, he was steady, too steady, and that's what scared me. "Hi," he said, with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can I come in?" I stepped away from the door, feeling something strange in my chest, a different kind of tension. "Of course. Are you okay?" "I am," he replied, walking in and heading straight for the couch as if it were his own home. Or I'm trying to be. I don't know anymore. I went to make coffee. Needed something to do with my hands. Needed that familiar routine. 2 cups. Sugar for me. Nothing for him. When I came back, Marcus was staring at his hands, twisting his wedding ring around on his finger. He still wore it. He always did. I sat in my usual spot, in the armchair opposite the couch. Safe distance. Appropriate distance for one neighbor comforting another. But when I looked up, he was looking at me in a way that made my stomach churn. "Have you ever thought," he began, his voice low, "that sometimes we cling so much to what we've lost that we forget to notice what we still have?" I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Marcus took a deep breath, set his cup on the coffee table between us. "I come here every week to fall apart. You listen to me, you comfort me, you never complain. And He paused, his eyes shining in a way that wasn't just sadness. "I realized something. You make me feel like I'm not broken." My heart pounded. "Marcus, you're not broken. You're grieving, I know." He interrupted, but gently. "Everyone tells me that. The therapist, my family, friends. You're grieving, Marcus. It's normal to feel this way. But when I'm here, He gestured vaguely to the space between us. When I'm with you, I don't feel like a grieving person. I feel like me. I should have said something safe. Something about time, about healing, about how it was natural for him to start feeling better. But the words wouldn't come out. Because the way he was looking at me wasn't the way a neighbor looks at another. It was the way someone looks when they truly see you. I haven't felt this comfort with anyone since Sarah. And that was it. He said it. He put her name out there, but not in the usual way. Not with a broken voice, not with eyes full of tears. He said her name like someone mentioning the past. Something that existed, that was important, but that was left behind. My brain went into overdrive. One part screaming I was reading this wrong, that he was vulnerable, that gratitude was getting twisted into something else. And another part, quieter, but louder somehow, saying I knew exactly what was going on. Marcus. My voice came out hoarser than I intended. I think you're confusing things. You're vulnerable, I'm here. It's easy to mix. I'm not confusing anything. He cut me off again, but now he stood up from the couch. My entire body tensed as he came to sit on the coffee table right in front of me, so close I could feel his warmth. I know what I'm feeling, and I know it's wrong, and I know it's too soon, and I know you'll probably send me away now. But I can't pretend anymore that I come here just because I need to cry. My brain was in full panic mode. This couldn't be happening. I was the helpful neighbor, the friend, the shoulder to cry on. It wasn't. It wasn't this. It couldn't be this. You come here because you need support, I said, but my voice wasn't convinced. Because you're going through a tough time and You're scared of what I'm saying. It wasn't a question. I am. At least I was honest. I'm very scared. Because if you're saying what I think you're saying, then You what? And man, that question, that tone. As if he already knew the answer but needed to hear me say it. As if he was giving me permission to admit something I'd been denying for weeks. I feel it too, I whispered. And it was like jumping off a cliff. I feel it too. And I'm terrified because you lost your wife 5 months ago, and you're vulnerable. And I should be the responsible adult here saying this is grief and loneliness and... Then Marcus took my hand. That's all it was. His hand covering mine, warm and solid and real. But the entire world just... stopped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I could only feel his skin on mine, his thumb tracing a soft circle on the back of my hand, the way my fingers instinctively curled between his, as if my body knew something my head refused to accept. I'm not confused, he said, his voice so low it was almost a whisper. I know the difference between being alone and being with someone who makes me want to be less alone. I looked up. He was so close. So close I could see the tiny golden flecks in his brown iris, could count the faint freckles around his nose, could feel his breath brushing my face. What if you're taking advantage of me? I asked, my voice trembling. What if I'm just an emotional crutch until you truly recover? Do you think you are? He squeezed my hand lightly, and I swore I could feel my pulse beating against his fingers. Do you really think that's all this is? No. I didn't think so. And that was precisely the most terrifying part. Because the way my heart was pounding, the way every nerve ending in my body was on high alert, the way I wanted to eliminate those last few inches between us and at the same time run out the door. None of that was just friendship. None of that was just compassion. I don't know what this is, I admitted. Then let's find out. He intertwined our fingers completely, and holy hell, that should have been illegal. The sensation of his hand in mine, warm and solid and perfectly fitted, was so intense I was getting dizzy. Marcus! It wasn't a protest. It was more of a plea. For what, I didn't know. Maybe for him to stop. Maybe for him to never stop. We stayed like that for too long. Hands intertwined, looking at each other, breaths uneven, all the air in the room seeming electrified. I saw the hesitation in his eyes too. Saw him fighting the same thing I was. Desire against reason, attraction against guilt. And then my brain finally decided to work again. No. I pulled my hand back as if I'd touched fire. I stood up so fast I almost knocked over the cup. No, we can't. This is wrong on so many levels I don't even know where to begin. Marcus also stood up, his hands raised as if surrendering. All right, I'm sorry, You just lost your wife. My voice came out louder than I intended. You have a daughter. You're vulnerable, and I should know better than... I kissed you, he interrupted. Or almost kissed you. I crossed the line. You didn't do anything wrong. But I wanted to, I said, and honesty hurt coming out. I wanted to, and that makes me a terrible person. Because you're grieving and I should be your friend and not... The sound of a door slamming outside made us freeze. Daddy? Emma's voice came from the building hallway. Daddy, are you there? Marcus closed his eyes, his whole body tensing. Shit, she was at her grandma's, must have come back early. Go, I said, gesturing towards the door. Go, she needs you. He looked at me for another second, and there was so much unsaid in that look that I almost begged him to stay. But then he nodded and left, and I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart still racing, my hand still tingling where he had touched it. What the hell had we done? The next 2 weeks were a silent torture. We'd bump into each other in the hallway, a quick hi and eyes to the floor. He'd leave for work in the morning at the same time I left for the gym, and we'd share the elevator in awkward silence, each of us staring at our phones as if they were the most interesting thing in the world. I'd hear Emma playing in the apartment next door and wonder if she'd noticed anything strange that night. I'd hear Marcus putting her to sleep, his voice soft through the thin wall. And I had to force myself not to think about how that voice had sounded when he said my name. I avoided the balcony because I knew he also had a habit of being there. I changed my route to the car to avoid passing his door. I started shopping at different times. It was ridiculous, pathetic even. 2 adults hiding from each other in a 3-story building. But it was easier than facing the truth. That I had felt something, that he had felt something, and that neither of us had any idea what to do with it. Until that Tuesday. Tuesday night, almost 10 o'clock. I was trying to pretend I was watching TV when someone knocked on the door. 3 quick, urgent knocks. When I opened it, it wasn't Marcus. It was Emma. She was in her pajamas, eyes puffy from tears. My stomach sank. Can you come? She whispered. Dad's. He's not okay again. The way she said again, like a 6-year-old who'd learned to read the signs. It killed me. Did he ask you to call me? I asked, already grabbing my keys. She shook her head. He doesn't know I'm here, but he's sitting in the dark, and he doesn't answer when I talk to him, and I got scared. I locked the door and followed Emma down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last, because I knew that when I entered that apartment, when I saw Marcus in that state, something would change for good. We had spent 2 weeks trying to establish boundaries, trying to return to the safe zone of cordial neighbors who felt absolutely nothing for each other beyond casual friendliness. But when I entered that apartment and saw Marcus sitting on the couch, in the dark, staring into nothing with that empty expression that was worse than any crying, I knew we had already crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Walking into Marcus's house that night felt like stepping back in time. Her photographs were everywhere. Sarah on the beach smiling. Sarah in her wedding dress. Sarah holding newborn Emma, that wild mix of terror and joy on her face. I only knew this woman through his stories. But in that room, surrounded by the evidence of the life she had built, I felt as if I were betraying her before anything had even happened. Dad says you're his best friend. Emma was standing in the doorway with a worn teddy bear, her eyes exactly like Marcus's, that honey brown with flecks of green. Does he? I managed to smile. What else did he tell you? That you make him smile again. She tilted her head, the way children do when they're analyzing adults. Mommy used to make him smile too, but now she lives in heaven with the angels. My chest tightened. Your mom must have been a very special person. She was. Emma shrugged with that disconcerting acceptance only children have. Daddy sometimes cries in his room, but he thinks I don't know. She turned to leave, then stopped. Thank you for making him smile. I don't like it when he's sad. And just like that, in one sentence, a 6-year-old girl gave me permission and absolution all at once. I found him in the bedroom. The door was cracked open, and I could see him sitting on the bed's edge, hunched over, holding something. When I knocked on the frame, he spun around fast, hiding whatever it was behind his back like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Sorry, I said softly. Emma let me in. No, it's okay, come in. He quickly wiped his face with the back of his hand. I was just... thinking. I stepped in carefully, like I was walking on sacred ground. And maybe I was. The room smelled like lavender, her perfume I guessed, mixed with something like wood and soap from him. The bed was perfectly made except for one side, his side, where the pillows were creased and worn. Her side was pristine, untouched, waiting for someone who would never come back. I can't touch her stuff, Marcus said, watching me look around. I know it's stupid. It's almost 2 years now. But I can't pack away her clothes or touch her pillows or change anything because it feels like I'm erasing her. Like I'm saying she was never here. His voice broke on the last word. He was still holding that thing behind his back. Can I see what you're holding? I asked gently. He hesitated, then showed me. A faded pink t-shirt with a stupid flamingo on it. Her sleep shirt, he said, running his fingers over it so gently my chest ached. She wore this thing every single night. I'd give her grief about it, said she looked like a teenager. She'd laugh and say comfort doesn't have an age limit. He buried his face in it, breathing deep. Her smell's been gone forever, but sometimes I still pretend I can still smell her. I didn't hesitate. I just sat down next to him. The bed shifted with my weight, pulling us closer. I could feel the heat from him, hear him fighting to keep it together. Marcus, I said softly, you're not erasing her. You're just trying to learn to live again. But what if I don't want to live without her? He turned to me and the raw pain in his eyes was breathtaking. What if every time I feel good, every time I smile, every time I... He stopped abruptly, his jaw clenching. Every time you what? I pressed, my heart quickening because I knew what he was going to say. Every time I look at you, he whispered, and the words came out like a forced confession. And forget her for 5 damn seconds. The silence was suffocating. I could hear nothing but my own pulse in my ears. He was breathing fast, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made every nerve ending wake up. Marcus. No. He kept his eyes on mine. I need to say this. Before I chicken out, he took a trembling breath. I stay awake all night thinking about you. I make up reasons to see you. I watch for your car to pull up. And then I hate myself because she's barely been gone and I'm already... His voice shattered. He dropped the shirt and buried his face, shoulders racking with silent sobs. That's when I lost it. I put my hand on his shoulder. He jerked at the contact but didn't pull away. Then I pulled him toward me. For a second he tensed. I felt him fight it. But then he just gave in. He collapsed against me like he'd been holding himself up for way too long. His arms locked around me hard, fingers gripping my shirt like I was the only thing keeping him from going under. He sobbed against my neck, his breath hot and wet on my skin, and I just held him. One hand on his back, one in his hair, keeping him together while he came apart. It's okay, I murmured, not knowing if I was lying or not. It's okay. It's not, he sobbed against my skin. Nothing is okay. I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't want this. Want what? He pulled back enough to look at me. Eyes red, face wet. Something so raw and open in that look that it broke me and rebuilt me at the same time. You, he whispered. I want you. And I hate myself for it. I stopped breathing. The world compressed to that room, that bed, that tiny distance between us. You don't have to hate yourself. My voice came out rough. Yes, I do. But he didn't pull back. He leaned in closer, eyes dropping to my mouth. I've only been a widower for like 2 years. I have a daughter who still asks for her mom. Everyone in this town knows everyone, and they all look at me with that sorry expression. And He raised his hand slowly, like it was shaking, and touched my face. His thumb traced my cheekbone, my jaw, the edge of my mouth. So careful, so gentle, like I was sacred or breakable. And I can't stop thinking about kissing you, he said, eyes on mine. God help me, but I can't. I should have been the adult here. Should have pulled back, set a boundary, kept us from doing this. But the way he was looking at me, lost, hungry, guilt and desire twisted together, my walls came down. Stop thinking then, I whispered, and closed the gap. The kiss was... I don't have words. Not soft. Not gentle. Desperate. Hungry. 2 years of loneliness hitting months of wanting him. His lips were soft and salty with tears, moving against mine with a desperation that ignited everything. He groaned against my mouth, a low, shattered sound, and pulled my hair, tilting my head to go deeper. I pushed him back on the mattress, covering him with my body, and he gasped and opened his legs for me, his hands dragging across my back like he couldn't get close enough. He tasted like salt and want. His skin burned under my hands. When I kissed his jaw, his neck, he threw his head back and said my name like it was both a prayer and a curse. Wait, he gasped, but his hands pulled me tighter. We can't. We shouldn't. I know, I murmured against his skin, nibbling lightly. I know. Emma's in the next room. If she wakes up, I know. And everyone will talk, and I don't know if I'm ready, and I pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. Marcus, stop. He stared at me, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his lips swollen from the kiss, and there was so much fear in that gaze that my chest ached. "We don't have to decide anything now," I said, running my fingers gently through his hair. "You don't have to know all the answers. Just let it happen. What you're feeling is real, and it's okay. But Sarah would want you to be happy," I said with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. "I didn't know her, but anyone who truly loved you would want that for you." His eyes filled with tears again. "How do you know?" "Because it's what I would want, if it were me." Something broke in him with those words. Marcus pulled me into another kiss, and this time there was less desperation and more surrender. His lips moved against mine with a heartbreaking sweetness, as if he was savoring every second, memorizing every sensation. My hand slid under his shirt, feeling his warm skin, the muscles trembling beneath my touch. He arched against me with a muffled groan, and I was about to completely lose control when we heard it, the creak of a door opening in the hallway. We froze instantly. Marcus's eyes widened, and I could see panic taking over, the responsible father superseding the man who was about to give in. He gently pushed me away, and I rolled to the side, both of us sitting on the edge of the bed too quickly, adjusting our clothes with trembling hands. "Emma," Marcus whispered, and I could hear the overwhelming guilt in that single word. We froze there, listening to her bare feet on the floor, the bathroom, the flush, the water running, footsteps again, then her door closing. The silence after was different, heavy, like reality crashing back down. Marcus stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair over his crumpled clothes. "You should go," he said, and his voice was back to that controlled tone, that armor he wore. "It's late. Emma might. Someone might. Marcus. Please." He didn't look at me. "Just, please, go." I got up slowly, every part of me wanting to stay, to fight, to make him look at me again. But the way he stood there, rigid shoulders, clenched fists, refusing eye contact, told me everything I needed to know. He was panicking, and if I stayed, I would only make it worse. "It's okay," I said softly. "I'll go." "But Marcus?" He didn't answer, but I saw his jaw clench. "That wasn't a mistake," I said. "And you know it." I left before he could answer, before I could see if tears were streaming down his face again, before I could do the stupid thing of going back and proving to him that it was real. The following days were torture. Marcus avoided me, and in a small neighborhood where our houses face each other, avoiding someone requires conscious effort. He left for work earlier, came home later. When our trucks parked side by side in the driveway at the same time, he just waved quickly and rushed inside. Emma still came to talk to me sometimes when she was playing in the street, but Marcus called her back almost immediately with that soft but firm fatherly voice that wasn't asking, it was ordering. I hated myself for missing him. I hated myself even more for staring out the window, waiting for just a glance, a sign that that night had meant as much to him as it had to me. It was a Thursday at 2:30 a.m. when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I was awake, obviously I was, staring at the ceiling, replaying that kiss over and over. When I saw his name on the screen, my heart almost exploded from my chest. The message was short, just 9 words, but they were the 9 words that would change everything. Can't sleep, can't stop thinking, need to talk. I stared at that message long enough for 3 more to arrive. Sorry to wake you. Sorry for everything. But I really need to see you. My fingers trembled so much that I had to type the answer 3 times before getting it right. When? The answer came instantly, as if he was holding the phone, waiting. Now, please. I was dressed in under a minute. Didn't think about consequences. Didn't think about what the neighbors would say if they saw me crossing the street at 2:30 a.m. Didn't think about anything except that urgency in his texts. That please, like a drowning man gasping for breath. When I reached the front door, it was open. Just a crack. Soft light coming from inside. A promise, an invitation, a surrender. I told myself I was just going to listen, just to talk, just to be the friend he needed. But when I walked in and saw him there, standing in the middle of the living room, in sweatpants and a t-shirt, barefoot, his eyes red from sleepless nights, but so full of something that looked like hope mixed with fear, I knew, we both knew, there was no turning back. It's 2 in the morning. We're both sitting on Marcus's living room couch, a safe distance between us. It's no longer the impulsive closeness of a few nights ago. It's the distance of 2 people trying to think clearly about something that makes no logical sense, but that emotionally is consuming every second of our lives. Marcus is looking at his own hands. I'm looking at him. The house is silent. Emma is asleep upstairs. The rain stopped a few hours ago. There's no more noise, no more excuses. It's just the 2 of us, and the truth neither of us can ignore anymore. I can't keep pretending this isn't happening, Marcus says finally. His voice is low, but firm. That you're not in my head all the time. That I don't wake up thinking about you. That I'm not constantly looking for excuses to see you. My heart races, but I don't say anything. I need to let him finish. I've spent the last 3 days trying to convince myself that it was a mistake, that I was vulnerable, that it was the moment, the rain, Emma sleeping upstairs, that it was anything but what it really was. He lifts his eyes, and when our eyes meet, I see something that completely disarms me. Fear, pure and absolute. But I can't convince myself, he continues, because every time I close my eyes, I feel your hand in mine, and every time I open them, I realize I want you here, truly. Not just as a neighbor, not just as a friend. He takes a deep breath. I think I'm falling in love with you, and that terrifies me in a way I can't even explain. The silence that follows is deafening. I wished I had something intelligent to say, something that made sense. But all that comes out of my mouth is the rawest truth I've ever spoken. I'm already in love with you. Since that first night, when you opened the door with your face a mess and let me in. I didn't want to. I tried to resist, but Marcus, I couldn't. And I'm terrified too. He closes his eyes. For a moment, I think he's going to ask me to leave. That he'll say this is crazy, that it's impossible, that he can't do this. But when he opens his eyes again, what I see isn't rejection, it's relief. I don't know how to do this, he says, and his voice is trembling now. I don't know how to explain it to Emma. I don't know how to deal with my family, with the guys at the station, with the neighbors. I don't know how to be this person I apparently am and have never admitted before. You don't need to know everything right now, I say. And for the first time tonight, I move closer. Not as close as I'd like, but enough for him to know I'm here. Nobody has a manual for this. But Emma, he begins, and I see guilt cross his face. She's already lost her mother. How can I do this to her? How can I change everything again? What if she doesn't understand? What if she hates me? Emma loves you, I say firmly. Unconditionally. I see it every time she looks at you. She won't hate you for being happy. And what if the people at the station find out? He continues, and I see this is a list he's been building for days. What if it affects my job? What if someone uses it against me, against Emma? Then we deal with it, together. He looks at me as if I'd said something absurd. You talk as if it's simple. It's not simple, I admit. It's terrifying. But Marcus, you've spent the last 2 years living in fear. Fear of forgetting her. Fear of moving on. Fear of being happy again. And I understand. I understand every second of it. But at some point, you have to decide if you're going to keep punishing yourself, or if you're going to allow something good to happen. He's silent for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is so low I can barely hear it. What if I don't know how to make this work? Then we figure it out together, slowly, carefully, honestly. He looks at me, really looks, and I see the exact moment he makes the decision. All right, he says, let's try, but it has to be the right way. For Emma, for everything. I completely agree. I want to do this right by her, he continues. And now there's a determination in his voice that wasn't there before. No lies, no hiding. But also, no rushing. She needs time to process, to understand that this doesn't change how much I loved her mother, that this doesn't replace anything. How do you want to do it? Marcus thinks for a moment. First, I need to be sure this is real, that it's not just a moment, that it's something worth risking everything for. And how will you be sure? He looks at me in a way that makes my stomach flip. By staying close to you, by truly getting to know you, not just as the neighbor who helps me, but as you, as the person you are when you're not trying to save me. I can do that, I say. And then, when I'm absolutely sure, I'll talk to her, calmly, in a way she can understand. I won't lie, but I also won't give her more information than she's ready to hear. That makes sense. And the rest, the community, work, family, we'll deal with it as it comes. But first, it's you and me. Then it's Emma, and only after that, the world. I feel something release in my chest, something that had been tight for weeks. You and me, I repeat. I like that. Marcus smiles. It's a small, hesitant smile, but it's real. Me too. And then he moves closer. Not impulsively, not desperately, but deliberately. Like a choice. When he kisses me, it's not like last time. There's no urgency, no desperation. It's slow, it's careful, it's intentional. It's a kiss that says, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. And when we pull apart, I see in his eyes the same thing I'm feeling. Absolute terror and absolute hope at the same time. This is crazy, he whispers. Completely, I agree. But we're doing it anyway. We are. He rests his forehead against mine, and we stay like that for a while, breathing together, existing in this space between what was and what will be. And then, because the universe has a terrible sense of humor, Marcus's phone alarm goes off. He pulls away, looks at the screen, and grimaces. My shift starts in 30 minutes. You need to go. I don't want to. I know, but you have to. He sighs, stands up, and for a second I see the hesitation, as if he's afraid that when he comes back, all of this will have been a dream. I'll be back tomorrow night, he says, after my shift. Emma will be at her grandma's. We can talk more, if you want to. I want to. He smiles again. That small, hesitant smile that's becoming my favorite thing in the world. So I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow. He heads for the door, but before leaving, he turns around. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on yourself. And then he leaves. And I'm left alone in his living room, heart pounding and head spinning. This is real. This is actually happening. And I'm absolutely terrified. And absolutely happy. The following weeks are a living contradiction. To the outside world, nothing has changed. Marcus is still the dedicated widowed firefighter. I'm still the helpful neighbor. We greet each other in the hallway. We exchange mundane texts. We share occasional dinners with Emma. But between the lines, everything has changed. There are glances that hold just a beat too long. Hands that find each other when Emma isn't watching. Messages at midnight when she's already asleep. Thinking of you. Are you okay? I wish you were here. There are nights when Emma's at her grandma's and Marcus shows up at my door. We stay up talking about everything and nothing, learning each other through small confessions and big truths. I find out Marcus dreamed of being an architect but became a firefighter because his father was one, and his grandfather before that. It was just what you did in his family. He plays guitar when he's stressed but never in front of anyone. He's terrified of spiders, which is funny considering he runs into burning buildings. He learns I'm a mess in the mornings, that I have like 5 books going at once and never finish any, that I have a tattoo hidden somewhere with a Latin phrase my mom used to quote. There are stolen moments, a quick kiss in his kitchen while Emma's in the bathroom, fingers locked under the dinner table, hugs that last too long to be casual, but nobody's counting. It's secret, it's careful, it's absolutely unsustainable, but it's ours. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday, everything changes. Marcus calls me in the middle of the afternoon. I see his name on the screen, and automatically smile, because it's become a reflex. But when I answer, his voice isn't smiling. Emma asked me something today. My stomach drops. What? He takes a deep breath on the other end of the line. If I love you? The way I loved her mother. The world stops. What did you say? I said I needed to think about it. That we'd talk. Nothing. But I already know, he said, his voice shaky. And I think she does too. Marcus. I told her. Not everything, but enough. That I like you in a different way. That I want you to be a more permanent part of our lives. My heart is beating so fast I can barely breathe. How did she react? Too long a silence. We need to talk. All 3 of us. Tonight. Can you come? Of course. What time? 7. After dinner. I'll be there. Okay. Another pause. I love you, he says suddenly, and it's the first time he's spoken those words. I needed you to know that before anything else. I close my eyes. I feel the tears burn. I love you too. See you at 7. At 7. He hangs up, and I stand in the middle of my living room, holding the phone, with my heart in my throat and my mind in absolute panic. Emma knows, or at least suspects, and tonight, everything will be decided. Whether this will be something real, something that can exist in the light of day, or if it will be the end of everything before it even truly began. It's 6:45. I'm standing in front of Marcus's door, hand raised, ready to knock, but I can't move. Because on the other side of that door is the answer to the question that changed everything. Emma knows, and now I'm going to find out if she can accept it. The phone rang at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was making coffee when I saw his name on the screen. Marcus never called in the morning. He was always taking Emma to school. "Can you come over?" His voice was strange, too controlled. "Now? What happened?" "Emma." "She knows. I need you here." My stomach churned. "I'll be there in 2 minutes." I ran across the sidewalk between our houses in my flip-flops. The front door was ajar. I walked straight in. Emma was sitting at the kitchen table, her legs swinging without touching the floor, her hands clasped over the tablecloth like a miniature adult trying to look serious. Marcus was leaning against the sink, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on her with a mixture of terror and love that broke my heart. "Hi, Emma," I said, trying to sound casual. "Hi." She looked at me with those immense brown eyes, her mother's eyes. "Dad said you were coming." I sat in the chair opposite her. Marcus didn't move from the sink, as if he needed that physical barrier to stay standing. "I found the picture," Emma said, and my heart stopped. "The one you took at the park? You were holding hands." She spoke without accusation, just a fact, as if saying, "I saw it rained yesterday." "Emma," Marcus began, but she raised her small hand. "I'm not finished." She took a deep breath, preparing herself. "I want to ask some questions, and I want you to answer me truthfully, like adults." I glanced at Marcus. He nodded, throat tight. "Go ahead," he said. "Are you boyfriend and girlfriend?" The word sounded so small coming from her, so innocent, so devastatingly direct. Marcus looked down at his own hands. Then he looked at me, then at Emma. "Yes," he said. "We are." Emma took that in. She nodded slowly. "Okay, next question." "I'm listening," Marcus said quietly. "Does that mean you didn't love Mom?" And there was where his heart shattered. I saw it happen. I saw his eyes fill with tears. I saw his jaw tremble. I saw his breath catch. He kneeled down in front of her and took both her small hands in his. "Emma, hear this." His voice was steady now, tears or not. "I loved your mom with my whole heart. Every day with her was the best gift I ever got. She gave me you, the most important thing in the world. When she died, I didn't think I'd ever breathe right again." Emma was quiet, listening, absorbing every word. "But you know what she told me?" Marcus said. "At the hospital before..." She held my hand and said, "Marcus, promise me you'll really live. Don't just exist, live. Be happy. Find someone who makes you smile again." I promised, but I didn't think it was possible. He looked at me, then back at her, until it was possible. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I looked for, but it happened. And I know deep in my heart, that your mother would be happy, because she loved me enough to want me to be happy, even without her here. Emma was silent for a moment, too long. Then she said, "Well, I know." Marcus blinked. "What?" "I know Mom wanted this. She told me." The air left my lungs. "When?" Marcus whispered. "On the last night at the hospital, when you went out to get coffee." Emma spoke slowly, as if unearthing a precious memory. "She said you would be sad for a long time, that I needed to take care of you, and that one day you would find someone nice, and that it was okay, that she wanted you to be happy." Marcus was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. "She said love doesn't end," Emma continued. "It just grows, changes, but it doesn't end." "Your mother was wise," I managed to say, my own voice failing. Emma looked at me then, really looked at me, as if she were evaluating me for the first time. "Third question," she said. "Go ahead. Are you nice to my dad?" The simplicity broke something in me. "I try to be," I said. He's the most incredible person I've ever met." "Is he happy when he's with you?" "I hope so." "He is." She said this looking at Marcus. "I see it. You really smile now, Dad. Not that fake smile you used to do." Marcus let out a wet laugh. "You see a lot, don't you?" "I do." Emma nodded. "Fourth question." "How many questions do you have?" Marcus asked, trying to joke, but his voice betrayed him. "Just one more." Emma took a deep breath. "Are you still going to be my dad? Or will it be different?" Marcus pulled her into such a tight hug that I feared he would suffocate her. "Always," he said against her hair. "I'll always be your dad. Nothing in this world changes that. You are my daughter, my life. Nothing is more important than you." "Not even him?" Emma asked softly. Marcus pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "You are my daughter," he repeated. "You come first, always." Emma considered this. Then slowly she turned to me. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course," I said. Do you like me? The question destroyed me. I like you very much, Emma. You're funny, smart, kind. It's impossible not to like you. Are you going to stick around? I looked at Marcus. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. If you want me to stay, I said. And if your dad wants me to. Emma was silent. Then she slid from the chair, walked around the table, and came to me, and hugged me. It wasn't a long hug, maybe 5 seconds, but they were the 5 most important seconds of my life. When she pulled away, she said, "I'm glad it's you, because you make my dad really smile." And with that, she picked up her backpack, gave Marcus a kiss on the cheek, and said, "Can I go to school now? I'm going to miss science class." Marcus laughed, a real laugh, full of relief and disbelief. "Of course, love. I'll take you." When the door closed behind them 15 minutes later, I collapsed into the chair and cried. From relief, from gratitude, from pure terror about what had just happened. 2 days later, we were at the supermarket. It had been Marcus's idea. We needed normal things to live normally. Emma was at school, and we were both in the cereal aisle, debating which brand had less sugar. And at some point his hand brushed mine near the shelf. And I held on. I just held his hand, without thinking, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He looked down at our intertwined hands and smiled. That smile that made my chest ache. "This feels right," he said softly. "It does." We continued walking down the aisle, holding hands. We passed the dairy section. We picked up bread, completely normal, completely visible. And then I heard, "Marcus?" Our hands separated instantly, as if the touch burned. A man stood at the end of the aisle. Firefighter uniform. Not from Marcus's station, but I recognized the style. He was looking at us with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Dave." Marcus nodded like it was nothing, but I felt his shoulders tense. "How's it going?" Yeah. Just doing some shopping." Dave looked at me, then at Marcus, then at where our hands had been seconds ago. "You're a friend," I said too quickly. Dave nodded slowly. "Friend, right." Uncomfortable silence. "Good to see you, Dave," Marcus said, already starting to turn away. "You too, Marcus." We left the store in silence, loaded the bags into the car in silence. He drove home in silence. When we got to his garage, he turned off the engine and just sat there, hands on the steering wheel. "He saw," Marcus said quietly. "He didn't see anything," I tried. "We weren't," he saw. Marcus cut me off. "And he's going to tell." The Marcus. "Firefighters gossip worse than anyone. You have no idea. By tomorrow, everyone at the station will know." My stomach dropped. "So, what do we do?" He was quiet. Then he looked at me. "I don't know." That night, his phone blew up. We were watching TV in the living room, Emma already asleep upstairs, when it started. One message, then another, then 5 at once. Marcus picked up the phone. I saw his face change. "It's the station group chat," he said, his voice strange. "What are they saying?" He didn't answer. Just kept scrolling. "Marcus?" Dave posted. He ran a hand over his face. He posted in the group that he saw me with someone at the store. And now, he let out a humorless laugh. "Now they're speculating." My heart sank. Speculating what? Everything. He threw the phone on the couch as if it burned him. If it's true. If I'm gay? If Emma knows? If I cheated on Melissa? If, his voice broke. If I still deserve to wear the uniform. I felt sick. They said that? Not in those words. But it's between the lines. Silence. "Marcus," I said slowly. "I'm leaving." He looked at me. "What?" "I'll step back. I'll stop coming here. We stop. And eventually they'll forget. And you'll be safe." "No." "Marcus, listen." "No." He stood up. He was trembling. "I'm not doing that. You could lose your job." "I know." "You could lose your friends." "I know." "Then why?" I was also standing now. "Why would you risk all of that?" And he looked at me. Really looked at me. With those eyes that had hooked me from day one. "Because I spent 2 years hiding," he said, his voice firm now. 2 years pretending to be okay. Pretending I wasn't drowning. And then you showed up and showed me that you can still breathe. That you can still feel. And I can't go back to that dark place. Marcus, but I won't hide." He took a step towards me. "Not from you. Not from them. Not from anyone else. Because you're worth it. This, what we have, is worth it." My chest was tight. "What if it costs you everything?" "Then it will cost." He held my face in his hands. "But at least I'll truly be alive. Finally." He kissed me. Deeply. Desperately. Like a man who had just decided to stop drowning. When he pulled away, he said, "I'm going to the station tomorrow. I'm going to talk to them, face to face. Marcus, you don't have to." "I do." He was decided now, firm. "I need to do this right. I won't let them speculate. I won't let them turn this into something dirty or shameful. I'll tell them, my way. What if they don't accept it?" And they don't accept it. He shrugged. but I saw the fear in his eyes. But at least I'll be able to look myself in the mirror. I spent the night at home, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, imagining Marcus doing the same thing across the street. In the morning, he texted me, "Going now. I'll let you know when it's over." I replied, "I'll be waiting." I couldn't work. I walked around the house, looked out the window, checked my phone every 30 seconds. An hour passed, then 2. At 11:23 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to the station. His car was still in the parking lot. I stayed there, engine off, staring at the main door. Noon, 12:30 p.m., 1 p.m. At 1:17 p.m., the door opened. Marcus came out, and I couldn't read his face. He walked to his car, slow, measured steps, and I got out of my van. We stared at each other across the parking lot. "So?" I couldn't hold back the question, but he didn't answer. He just stood there, in the early afternoon sun. And I didn't know if he still had a job, if he still had friends, if he still had a life. And all I could think was, I did that to him. I brought this into his life, and maybe Dave was right. Maybe I was just the friend, the one who destroys everything. When the barracks door closed behind Marcus, my stomach churned. Standing there in the parking lot, looking at the red brick facade, I thought, I just destroyed his life. I just cost him everything he built. His career, his stability, the protection he had for Emma. 15 minutes dragged on like 15 hours. Every second hammered in my head. You were selfish. You should have waited. You should have let him decide when to reveal it. Then the door opened. Marcus walked towards me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Serious. Focused. My heart sank. I braced myself for the worst. He stopped in front of me and smiled. "The chief said it's 2025, not 1985, he said, and that smile grew. "My job is safe." I felt my legs weaken. What? The whole team agreed to respect it. Some already knew, apparently. They said it was more obvious than a fire on a sunny day. He laughed. That deep laugh I loved so much. Brian even asked when he could get to know you properly. I couldn't process it. "So, it's all good?" "More than good." Marcus held my hand right there in the barracks parking lot in broad daylight. "I'm free, love. We're free." And for the first time in months, I felt like we could breathe. The following weeks were surreal. Marcus wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't looking over his shoulder anymore. We went to dinner at local restaurants where firefighters from his team ate. We went to the movies, and he held my hand during the film. When Emma had a school presentation, we sat together in the audience like family. Family. The word still felt strange in my mouth. I, who had spent so much time alone, was suddenly at school events applauding an 8-year-old girl singing off-key about the 4 seasons. And I loved every second. But being a substitute father figure also brought its own internal storms. Sometimes helping Emma with her math homework, I'd catch myself thinking, do I have the right to be here? Do I deserve this place in her life? Marcus noticed. He always noticed. "You're not replacing anyone," he told me one night after Emma had gone to sleep. "You're adding, she has room in her heart for more than one person. And you earned that space on your own." But the real validation came from where I least expected it. Sarah's parents, Marcus's late wife, came to visit Emma on a Saturday. I had offered to leave, to give them space, but Emma insisted I stay. "You're part of the family now," she said, as if it were obvious. When they arrived, the tension was palpable. Sarah's mother, Diane, looked at me with that expression of someone assessing whether I was a threat or an addition. Her father, Robert, simply ignored me. The afternoon was uncomfortable. Short answers. Heavy silences. Until Emma, in the middle of a snack, simply exploded. "You need to stop being mean to him," she said, looking directly at her grandparents. 8 years old and all that courage. "He makes my dad smile again. And he helps me with math. And he makes better pancakes than anyone." Diane blinked, surprised. "Emma, dear, Mom would have liked him," Emma continued, and my throat tightened. Because Mom wanted us to be happy. And we are happy with him here. The silence that followed was different. Softer. Robert cleared his throat. Diane looked at Marcus, then at me, and something in her gaze changed. "You make pancakes?" she asked, and there was something like a smile trying to appear. "Yes, ma'am," I replied, my voice a little shaky. "With chocolate chips." "Sarah loved chocolate chips," she said quietly. And then for the first time, she really saw me. "Thank you for taking care of our family." I didn't cry in front of them. But later, when they left, Marcus held me while I let everything out. Things didn't become perfect overnight. The community had its opinions. Some neighbors stopped greeting us. Others, surprisingly, were more welcoming. The mother of one of Emma's classmates called me stepdad at a school meeting, and didn't even seem to realize the weight of the word. But the moment that really changed everything happened 3 months later. Marcus and I were talking about logistics, my apartment, his house, How much time we spent going back and forth. How much money we wasted maintaining two places. What if you moved in here? Marcus asked, too casual for what he was suggesting. I froze. Live together? Why not? Emma has already asked 3 times when you're going to really live with us. Half your stuff is already here, and he paused, looked at me with that intensity that still disarms me. I want to wake up with you every day. I want to really build this. Are you in? Would you be in to explore this with me? That same question he had asked months ago, now in a completely new context. Yes, I replied without hesitation. I'm in. The move took 2 weeks. Boxes and more boxes. Emma helping by reorganizing my things in random places. Marcus assembling a new bookshelf in the living room to accommodate my books alongside his. And then, on a regular Tuesday night, Emma was stuck on a science question about the water cycle. Marcus looked at me, then at her, and said, Ask him for help, honey. He's good at these things. Emma turned to me, notebook open. Can you help me? Of course, I replied, sitting next to her at the table. Marcus stood there for a second, just watching. And when Emma was focused on her notebook, he walked behind me, squeezed my shoulder, and whispered, Family. That word, that simple word. I had lived alone for so long. I had built such high walls. I had convinced myself I didn't need anyone. And now? Now I was helping an 8-year-old girl with her homework while the man I loved made coffee in the kitchen. And everything felt right. As if I had finally come home. A year. A whole year since that knock on the door. Since the man with tired eyes asked for help buying flowers. Since the beginning of all this. Marcus suggested we celebrate. Nothing big, he said. Just the 3 of us. Dinner at home. Emma insisted on helping to cook, which mostly meant her tasting ingredients and declaring everything perfect. Marcus made that tomato sauce I loved. I prepared a salad that Emma swore she'd eat but probably wouldn't. When we sat at the table, the soft kitchen light creating that warm, cozy atmosphere, Emma looked at me with that infinite childlike curiosity. Tell the story again, she asked. Which story? I asked, though I knew exactly which one. How you and Dad met. Marcus smiled. That smile that still made my heart skip a beat. You've heard this story 1,000 times. But I like it, Emma insisted. It's the best story. I looked at Marcus. He nodded, encouraging me. Well, I began. It started with a knock on my door. Your dad needed help buying flowers. For Mom, Emma completed without sadness now. Just as a fact. For your mom, I agreed. And I didn't know it then. But that knock was going to change everything. Because sometimes, Emma, the best things in life begin in the most difficult moments. Like Dad becoming happy again, she said, with that unsettling wisdom of children. Exactly like that. Marcus reached across the table. I took his hand. Emma placed her little hand on top of ours. Family, she declared, as if making it official. That's exactly what we became. It started with grief. A broken man needing help. Quiet moments thinking about his loss. Hands held through despair. But it became something I never thought was possible. Love. Not love that erases the pain, but love that grows beside it, that honors what was while building something new. Sarah is still present, in the photos around the house, in the stories Emma tells, in the way Marcus sometimes looks out the window and smiles at a memory. But now there's also space for us, for new moments, new memories, new stories that Emma will one day tell her children about the crazy family she had. Looking at Marcus across that table, our hands linked, Emma smiling between us, I got it. Sometimes the bravest thing is just holding someone's hand while they fall apart. And sometimes the greatest love starts with grief and ends with gratitude. Gratitude for that first knock on the door. For every hard afternoon that brought us closer. Gratitude for Emma, who showed us a family can grow in ways we never expected. And gratitude for being brave enough to let love in, even when nothing was possible. Because at the end of the day, it's not forgetting the pain. It's letting something beautiful grow next to it. It's a knock on your neighbor's door. It's holding someone's hand. It's taking broken pieces and making a family from them. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Marcus and I stayed on the porch. The same porch where months ago he had cried in my arms. Now we were just enjoying the comfortable silence, shoulders touching. Did you know, I asked, that first day when you knocked on my door, did you know it would turn into all this? Marcus thought for a moment. No, that day I just knew I needed help. And you helped. Best decision I ever made, I said. Opening that door. Mine too, he replied, knocking on it. And there, under the stars, in the silence of a sleeping suburb, with the woman he had loved resting in peace, and the daughter we both loved sleeping safely inside, Marcus kissed my forehead, simple, gentle, complete. Some stories begin with passion, others with adventure. Ours began with grief, but it transformed into the most beautiful journey I could ever imagine. And if this story touched your heart, If you also believe that love can find us in the darkest moments, share this with someone who needs to know that the light always returns. That families can be built in unexpected ways. That knocking on your neighbor's door can change everything. Because in the end, we are all just a knock on the door away from our own story of healing. And sometimes, all we need is the courage to open it.